Hey everybody, Dave's Live at 5 here. Yep, I made a mistake with the entry. It's supposed to be Dave's Live at 5 with a little NLP. So we're going to talk about a little NLP. If you can see behind me, this is the stuff I drive my brain crazy with every day. And then there's another board over there, but it's Dave's Live at 5. We're going to talk about a little NLP. What is NLP? Well, I tell you what, instead of me talking to you as a talking head, let's get into the presentation. We'll come back and talk a little bit more. So what is NLP? So here we are. Dave's Live at 5. We're here to talk about a little NLP. Yep, a little NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. What is it? Well, Wikipedia says it's the neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro-linguistic programming is a pseudo-scientific approach to communication, personal development, and psychotherapy created by Richard Bandler and John Grinder in California, United States in the 1970s. They said that they claimed there's a connection between neurological processes, your brain, and language, and behavioral patterns learned through experience, programming, that these can be changed to achieve specific goals in life. We experience the world subjectively, right? Subjectively with our experiences. The subjective representations with our experiences using the five senses and language, vision, seeing, hearing, explaining, olfaction, and gestation, you got me there. Such that when we, for example, rehearse an activity in our heads, we recall an event or anticipate the future that we're going to see images, hear sounds, taste flavors, have senses, smell odors, and think in some natural language. And it's claimed that these subjective presentations of experience have a discernible structure of pattern. Interesting. It's in this sense that NLP is sometimes defined as the study of the structure of the subjective experience. With all that mumbo jumbo put together, let's talk about it. In real estate, what is NLP? Well, let's face it, guys. Excuse my my typos, but scripts, what to say, right? So we have scripts in dialogue. We have scripts, right? So the scripts are basically what you say. The dialogues are how to say it. So when I discuss this, it's talking more about NLP than anything else, but I don't term it that. So how to say it, pace, tone, loudness, all of this, pace and tone, all this other stuff is all about neuro-linguistic programming and how you do certain things, right? So when we're doing the scripts, the way we do it is that we ask a question, we listen, we repeat the answer, we approve of the answer, and then we ask another great question, right? So when we repeat the answer, we want to approve it and say, I can appreciate that, or I know how you feel. And then you say, yeah, okay, that's approving it, repeating it and approving it, right? So, and then we ask another great question. You want to be a little familiar as you move along and try to find a common ground with the answers that you're getting. So the scripts are one thing, and how you move through the script and how you move through the conversation of rapport building are certain things that you say, like you want to shift it. You want to shift the level of the questioning to what I think you're saying is, and you talk about how you're hearing it. So that could be your next question. What you mean is, but your next great question could have nothing to do with the previous question. For instance, if you asked a question and a seller came back and said, well, I don't want to pay a commission, you can repeat, well, I understand you don't want to pay a commission. I can appreciate that. And then go on to a different question that has nothing to do with commission. That's called talking over or walking around the objection. As I said, rapport. This is the number one thing you need in any conversation. You got to build it. And when you build rapport, you can also ask tougher questions. And those questions become easier to ask. Depending on the level of your rapport is going to depend upon how comfortable you are, how practiced you are. You're going to familiarize yourself with the other person when repeating and approving. Where are you going to move when the home sells? Well, I'm going to be moving to Florida. Oh, Florida. I love Florida. What part of Florida are you going to? I'm going to Fort Lauderdale. I love Fort Lauderdale. I love Los Olas Boulevard. You make up something. You think about something that you said that maybe you've been there, right? You want to add to what they say and suggest a familiarity with them, right? Like maybe you've been to Fort Lauderdale, or maybe you've been to Phoenix, Arizona, or wherever they're going, North Carolina, what part? If you know something about it, build the rapport by talking about it, asking questions about it. This is a way to build rapport, and it kind of takes you off the subject of actually talking about getting their listing, which is eventually what you want to get, but that's not where you're going. That's commission breath, right? We don't want to have that, but a lot of people do when they get on the call. They forget about rapport building. They're very business-like. Screw that. Don't be business-like. Be personal-like. Because if you really care about the person you're talking to, it's going to work really well. And I just realized that I started doing this without sharing the screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to start over. Yep. I messed up again. I've done this before. I apologize for that. And I have 2 people watching. Thank you. I apologize for that. So I'm going to share this screen and get started. So NLP, I'm going to start all over again. I apologize for this. I've done this before, but I do record these and upload these onto my YouTube channel. So unfortunately, I made a big mistake. And so I'm going to just go through these slides really quickly because we've already discussed them, and we can get them rolling in a little while. So neuro-linguistic programming, what is it? Right? Scripts and dialogues. We talked about that. We talked about asking another great question, right? So another great thing, as we said, is building rapport, right? Building rapport. So what we want to do is we want to develop this rapport. We want to familiarize ourselves with the person we're talking to. Mirror and matching. Volume, speed, pace, tone, accent, body language. Laugh, even when it can be out of place. So your volume is really important when you're mirroring and matching, right? Volume is extremely important. You want to also think about your speed, your pace, your tone, even an accent. Like if the person you're talking to may have, they might have a British accent, or they might be from another country and speak, and their English might be their second language. Sometimes when people say it might be insulting, you can talk in that accent, right? Because it familiarizes yourself with them. And by the way, my biggest influence with this is from a good friend of mine, Dave DeVoe, who talks about this in his presentations he does in the Appointment Academy, which is once a month. Reach out, let me know what you think, and I'll be glad to help you with getting involved in the Appointment Academy. But, the speed, the pace, the tone, it's all important. And your body language. You're saying to yourself, but Dave, you're on the phone. How can we have body language on a phone? Well, you know what? It actually can be seen through your voice. And if you're in person, the mirror and matching becomes even more important, because if they sit there and fold their arms, you sit there and fold your arms. If they sit there and put their hand on their chin, you sit there and put your hand on your chin. Look, they're not going to even notice you're doing it. Okay? Laugh when it be out of place. And this is my favorite from Dave DeVoe. When you answer the phone, when you say hello on the phone, hi, this is Dave Finale. How are you? You laugh when you say your name. It sounds like it's out of place, but it's like they're saying, who the heck is this? But it's another way to program the responses you want and to build rapport. Downswing for confidence and direction. Upswing, while rare, for invoking questions. Right? So downswing, where would you be going to when you're going to be moving? Not where you're going to when you're going to move. Right? Upswing for invoking question. That would be, you're doing that? You decided to sell it yourself? So you've got to be careful with how you say things. Upswing is always a question. Downswing is for confidence and direction, right? The casual redirect. Once you get a rhythm going, this is natural. We talked about it earlier. When you have rapport, it's easier to do this. We talked about it. So let's go back to it. Asking another great question. The redirect is when they ask you something that's an objection, and you never handle an objection on the phone. Now, what you can do in a pre-qualification call prior to your actual meeting is you can bring out all the objections by questions you're asking. And as you bring out all these objections, it's really important to make note of these, right? So really make note of what you're doing so you can really understand what you need to handle when you do meet with them, right? So the casual redirect, you've got to have a rhythm going. It's natural, it's smooth, and it goes when you change the direction of the conversation. Like you're talking about maybe Florida, and all of a sudden they come up with an objection. Well, guess what? You've got rapport, so you're able to redirect simply. You're going to start with some assumptive, suggestive talk, right? So these are agreement questions, leading questions. When can you set up the schedule for the photographer? When can we get the sign up? When will it be great for you first to have the photographer over to set up the pictures? While these may sound a bit out of the ordinary, it's going to get to where you want to be quicker. So you're making assumptive questions. Where's a great place that we can put the lockbox? Because I brought one with me here. This is what it looks like. You can bring it with you, right? You want to also use some tie-down questions with easy connections. You want to put them in the yes state of mind. Does that make sense? That was a tie-down question. Does that make sense? So you understand what we're talking about. The tie-downs, is that possible? Will that work for you? Know what I mean? Right? Does that make sense? Embedded commands. It can be a command embedded inside a statement or a question, but mostly questions. It's in conversation. In pre-qualification conversations prior to the appointment, whether it was the buyer or a seller, you're going to be making statements. You're going to be talking to them to get the specifics of the things you're going to be talking about in your meeting, whether it's through virtually or in person, face-to-face. Confidence is important. So you want to make sure that you're committed to where you're going and never stop. You want to pull them along with what they want, not what you think they need. You never want to talk to them about their needs because you really don't know what they are unless you build rapport and are able to get more and more information out of them with how you're speaking to them, using the downswing as well. You want to be confident and not desperate. You don't want to sound like you're begging. Use a downswing, not an upswing. Be the magnet, not the jackhammer, right? So you don't want to pound at them, but you want to pull them along. It makes it easier for them to say yes to you. You know, you want to be inviting. Your suggestive tone is going to pull them along, right? You don't want to push them away, but you want to make sure you're giving them something that they want to do, not giving into something that they don't want to do. Like you talking about selling their home, not about not selling their home. You see, a lot of people will talk in negatives, like you priced the house too high. That's something they don't want to talk about. You're selling the house on your own. That's insane. They don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about getting their home sold for the most money. So that's where you put in your suggestive tone to create the attraction to you. It's not statements either, right? So here's an example. So let me ask you this. When we get together and everything looks good and you feel confident that I'm the right agent to sell your property, are you planning to hire me when we meet? Now, I've highlighted and bolded the 3 embedded commands in there, right? So feel confident, sell your property, hire me. These are things that you put in there and you said with a little bit of emphasis. How about when you list with me? So the greatest question is, so when we get together, How much do you want to list your home for? Oh, we want to list it for this. Great. So as a real estate agent, you got to understand that what I do every day is I study homes. I study prices. I look at homes. I go to homes every day. It's what I do. Therefore, I assume you'll list with me at a price that will cause your home to sell. Correct? So in there is your value, an embedded command, you'll list with me, an embedded command at a price that will cause your home to sell with a tie down. Correct? This makes them feel good. The whole idea is to make them feel good, make them feel important. So you want to bring out everything, right? You want to do this. You want to make sure that they know what's going on with what you're saying and that you're putting them in a position to make the decision where you're having a conversation with them about your abilities and they don't know it. A note about pace. Repeat and approving embedded commands all require the proper cadence and metronomical precision. What I mean by that, metronomical precision, it's like a metronome. You know what a metronome? It keeps time for musicians. It can keep time for what you're doing. So your practice of all of this can be done with a timer or a beat, right? You can even have music on that has a beat to it, or actually buy a metronome, which will help you be precise in what you're saying and your hesitations. Notice what we also put in the examples here were hesitations. In the third one, you can see that there's ... there's ellipsis there because those are my hesitations. So on the top one, so let me ask you this. When we get together, and everything looks good, and you feel confident that I'm the right agent to sell your property, are you planning to hire me when we meet? There's some hesitations in there. I emphasize them just then. When you list with me, go. When I see you, how much do you want to list your home for? When I see you is one way of confirming the appointment. You never want to confirm an appointment. You want to make this call, there's a pre-qualification call, and say, when I see you tomorrow, or just before we get together, before we get together tomorrow at 4, I wanted to ask you a few questions. See, when you confirm an appointment, it gives people the opportunity to cancel the appointment, and you don't want to give them that opportunity. All right? Shaking your head yes when asking questions. So when you're talking to the seller or the buyer, you want to make sure that they understand, and this could be in person, mostly, you're shaking your head yes. When you list with me, you shake your head yes. Are you ready to buy that home? Are you ready to put in an offer? And you shake your head yes when we find the right home for you. Are you willing to discuss an offer when we find that home for you, right? Pause, tempo, pace, downward tone. When we practice, we want to make sure that we put all these things in properly. Now, when we practice, there's a couple different ways to practice. There's reciting, there's script play, there's script practice, and there's role play. But all of these are to get you to a point where you understand what you're saying and remember what you're saying. And then when you go back with the role play, you're going to understand it a lot more. Remember, we said scripts and dialogues. So we want to learn the script by practicing it. We want to recite it first to memorize. Then we want to script practice to go through the script, make sure we got it down. And then we want to role play it. Now, one of the things not in here is I want you to remember that you want to be able to talk like you're talking to someone you know. And I always use Uncle Al, right? I had an Uncle Al that I liked. We talked, and I could say and talk to him like, my Uncle Al, this is what it's got to be. And, I want to help you with this. And You want to talk to them like you know them, like you're a trusted person that trusts you. Uncle Joe, Uncle Al, Aunt Irene, whoever it is. It's going to be someone that trusts you and you trust them. So trust us is really important. So I've gone through the quick examples of neuro-linguistic programming. And yes, it's very, very important for you to understand what we're doing here. So I'd love to help you with this. If there's any questions or anything we don't answer now, please feel free to go to talktodave.work, and I'll be glad to go through this whole process with you and whatever questions you might have, and also help you role play with it as well. So we have any questions? We got one comment here. Hello, Anthony. How are you? Are there any questions out there? Just put them in the comments, and I'll be glad to answer them for you. I apologize for the mistake of not sharing in the beginning, but we did get that straightened out. Okay, I see we don't have any questions. I want to thank you so much for attending this Live at 5 broadcast, this short broadcast about, things to help you with your business. I'm Dave Finale. Talktodave.work if you want to get together and have a conversation. Thanks so much. Take care, everybody.